Every calendar turns its pages, but one date can rewrite an entire life. This is the story of a boy named Ethan, who was born in a tiny town in one of the poorest families. His house was made of old wood and tin. His clothes were worn and patched, and shoes were a dream he had never known yet. Inside this boy's heart lived a fire no storm could ever put out. Ethan was just 7 when tragedy struck. His mother passed away after a long illness. His father, David, was left broken but determined. David worked long shifts at a steel plant, his hands scarred and burned from years of lifting heavy metal. He earned barely enough to buy food for the day, but no matter how hard life became, David always told Ethan, "Son, we may be poor, but we are not weak. You must study. One day you will live a life better than mine." To keep that promise, David would sometimes skip meals and save coins in an old glass jar, all for Ethan's school fees. By the time Ethan was 12, he had already learned to live like a grown man. Every morning at 4 a.m., he swept their little house, cooked simple meals, and fetched water from the pump down the road. His father would leave for the steel plant, and Ethan, carrying a torn backpack and a half-used notebook, would walk miles to school. He had little food, no nice clothes, and no money for extras, but Ethan's hunger for knowledge was stronger than his hunger for bread. He always stood first in his class. Teachers would often say, "This boy will make something of himself one day." One cruel afternoon, when Ethan was 14, life tested him again. While working at the factory, a heavy steel beam fell on his father. David's legs were crushed. Doctors tried, but the damage was permanent. He would never walk again. Lying on the hospital bed, David wept. "Ethan, I can't work anymore. I can't even feed you now. I dreamed of seeing you become a doctor, but now it feels impossible." Ethan held his father's hand tightly and whispered, "No, Dad, your dream is my dream. I will make it real, no matter how hard it gets." From that day, Ethan became the man of the house. Morning to afternoon, he attended school. Evenings, he went door to door selling pencils, soap, and notebooks for a small shopkeeper. Some days he earned enough to buy dinner, some days nothing, but no matter how tired or hungry, Ethan never missed studying at night under the dim light of an old lamp. 1 year later came the hardest test. Ethan had just finished high school and needed money for college admission. The deadline was only 2 days away. He worked harder than ever, but the money he earned was still shortened. The last evening, he walked door to door, begging people to buy his things. Everyone said no. Tired, hungry, and hopeless, he reached one last house. His voice trembled. "Mom, would you like to buy some notebooks? If not, could you please give me a little food?" The door opened and a kind elderly woman stood there. Her name was Mrs. Anderson. She saw the pale boy standing with shaky hands and invited him inside. First, she gave him warm bread and milk. Then she asked, "Child, why are you selling notebooks so late? Don't you go to school-a-thon?" Told her everything about his father's accident, his dreams, and how he couldn't afford the college admission. For Mrs. Anderson's eyes filled with tears, she went inside, brought an envelope, and placed it in his hands. Inside was the exact amount he needed. "Go, son," she said softly. "Fill your form. Don't let your dream die." Ethan's hands shook as he touched her hand and whispered, "You didn't just feed me today, you gave me a future." With that money, Ethan enrolled in college. His journey was still hard. He studied in the day, worked small jobs at night, and often went hungry, but his determination never broke. Years passed, and the boy who once sold notebooks became Dr. Ethan David, one of the most respected doctors in the city. One stormy night, an ambulance rushed into his hospital. Inside was an elderly woman struggling to breathe. She was battling pneumonia, and her condition was critical. Ethan recognized her instantly. It was Mrs. Anderson, the same woman who had once saved his dream there. Staff whispered, "Sir, her treatment will cost a fortune. She has no family, and she cannot pay." Anne's eyes filled with emotion. He said firmly, "Life is more important than money. Admit her immediately. I'll take care of everything." For weeks, he personally looked after her day and night. Slowly, Mrs. Anderson recovered. When she was ready to leave, the nurse handed her an envelope. She opened it, expecting a bill. But instead she found a note. "Many years ago you gave a hungry boy food and hoped you gave him money to study when no one else believed in him. That boy is now a doctor, and this treatment is his small way of saying thank you, Dr. Ethan David." Mrs. Anderson's eyes filled with tears. She looked up, and there stood Ethan, smiling gently. "Yes, Mrs. Anderson," he said, "I am that same boy. You didn't just give me money, you gave me a future today. I got the chance to return your kindness." She wept softly, not from pain, but from the miracle of kindness. A father's sacrifice, a boy's determination, and a stranger's small act of kindness together, they created a story that changed lives. Remember this: no act of kindness is ever wasted. What you give to the world always comes back, sometimes in ways you can never imagine. So never stop believing, never stop dreaming, and never stop helping, because one small act of kindness can build a future